Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're talking about another survival game. This one's definitely a survival horror in the form of The Forest. Now, this is one of those games that came out on Steam in early access a few years ago, and a lot of people thought it was a cool concept, but didn't really think that it was actually going to get finished. But it did. It did indeed actually get finished, and so here we are talking about it. So the Forest is it's an interesting game in the world of survival horror in the sense that it's a lot scarier than a lot of the survival horror experiences out there. So let's go ahead and get on into it and talk about a little bit about the story. We don't know a whole lot. I personally haven't made a whole ton of progress in the story, so I don't know a whole lot. Just the gist, just the goal point, and let's also kind of talk about what makes it different from your average survival games. And again, what is it that makes this game so particularly damn scary? So let's start with the story. There is a story, and there is an end goal. But starting off at the beginning, you're on an airplane with your son, and you got a little survival book next to him that you can grab. I would do that probably. I think you end up with it anyway, but yeah. And the plane goes down. Something happens, something goes wrong, and the plane crashes on this island. This uncharted island, as far as I can tell. Maybe it is charted. Maybe it's a known island because you do find like a yacht nearby and a couple campsites if you explore around enough. So it would seem that you're not the first person to find this island. And that's also made obvious by the locals because there's people living on this island. But more or less, after the plane goes down, obviously you're unconscious. You wake up, kind of, to see this big red dude take your son away. It's presumed that your son is alive. He was just also knocked out. And then you pass back out and wake up sometime later. So that gives us the premise of our storyline. We're looking for our kid. We're looking for our sweet baby boy. You know, he's out there somewhere, taken by this strange red man, and we don't know who this guy is, what he wants, what his motivations or anything like that. We just know that he's got our sweet baby boy, and we got to get him back. So that gives you the basis of your story, a motivation to continue, and a reason as to why you're even doing any of this in the first place, which I think is a good thing on this game's behalf. It sets you up with a reason. It doesn't just throw you into the middle of nowhere with no real rhyme or reason other than just kind of don't die. Like, you have an end goal, you have a purpose, you have a reason that you're doing everything, and there is a specific intended thing that you are pursuing, and that is finding your son. It may be a cliche story, sure, but kudos on the devs for giving you a reason to even do things in the first place. So let's talk a little bit about the red guy. There's not a lot to say. Like I said, I haven't really done a whole lot of progressing through the main story, so I've only seen him in the intro, but I can only assume that he's like a leadership figure of the local populace of the island. The local populace of the island being a cannibal tribe, or possibly several cannibal tribes. There's multiple little homesteads put together by these folks, and yeah, that I think is also a strong point of the game. Whereas opposed to doing something like monsters or zombies, they have you defending yourself against cannibal tribes, and that adds a certain layer to the horror element because like these folks, as far as they're concerned, you don't belong here. You're an outsider. There's no reason for you to be here, and their tenets of their belief system gives them a course of action that will respond to your presence, and that course of action is to eliminate you and probably eat you. So you'll find corpses of other folks along the way. There's a katana that you can find actually, and when you find it, it's been shoved down some dude's throat. And based on your surroundings, you can tell there was some sort of a secret drug deal going on or something here. And the locals found out about it and overpowered the folks doing the drug deal. And made an example out of them. They had no interest in any of the drugs or the money or anything, so they just left all that shit there and left the guy dead with the sword down his own throat. You can take the sword. It's pretty good. It's not the best weapon in the game, but it's pretty good. You don't really get a lot in the way of guns. Apparently, you can get like a revolver if you can find all the parts for it. But like, you get like, I think you might get 6 shots in the whole game to use it. So it's not like most survival games where like you'll find guns around in some degree of abundance, and you'll find ammo for them in some degree of abundance, and like if you're smart about it, you can really just kind of spend certain amounts of time just shooting around all willy-nilly. That's not going to be the case here. You're pretty much relegated to melee, which puts you at an obvious risk when you're in combat. So let's talk a little bit about the combat. It's fluid. It feels good. Again, it's primarily melee. You can get a bow and craft arrows. That'll give you your ranged combat. It's not a great bow, really. It sucks, but it'll get the job done in a pinch. It's about as good as you would expect a bow to be if somebody were to just make a bow out of like string and a stick. Like it's somewhat accurate, but not the most accurate bow I've ever shot in a video game. And it's somewhat effective. Like the arrows will actually pierce your enemies, but like it's obviously not going to serve you as well as a proper bow made by a bowsmith that is balanced and everything else with a heavy string on it or anything like that. That's just not what we're looking at here. So the majority of your combat is going to be in the melee range. Your primary weapon is also going to be your primary tool, which is that little red fire axe that you find right when you wake up, buried in the chest of that poor flight attendant girl. Rip in peace to her, because I don't know how or where that axe came from that ended up having it in her chest, but like, yeah, she dead. She dead. But that thing's going to carry you for the majority of your gameplay, and you can do a lot of things with it, and you can even do a few things to it to modify it and stuff. You can modify most weapons, actually. Like the katana, you can modify it by rubbing poison berries on it and give it the ability to poison your enemies. I don't know how good that is. Generally, combat moves a lot faster than poison does, and I don't think your enemies are really going to give up all too quickly. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about the horror elements here. So, when you get off this plane, you've got this freshly found axe. There's suitcases. You can slap them open with the axe and gather up some supplies. You really should do this. It'll give you a good amount of basic stuff to start. There's also some booze, some pop, and some snacks around the plane that you should grab. Really go through that plane, eat up them TV dinners real quick to replenish yourself a little bit first before you head off, and make sure you stocked up with everything you can find in the vicinity, but you don't want to hang around all too long. Get out of there and find yourself a spot that you feel is a good spot to set up camp. That'll bring you to crafting. The crafting in the game it's basic, but it's fleshed out in its own sense, and it's unique to the generally Minecraft style of crafting that a lot of games tend to have. This does take away from the ability to like truly customize your base in that regard, kind of. You can still build custom buildings. There's functionality for that, but it's not as robust as like Minecraft or other games with that kind of crafting system in them. Most of the stuff is just like a predetermined thing. Like, here's a campfire, you build it, you place down where you're gonna put it, and you start dumping materials into it, and then here's a little hut or a camp of some sort. So go ahead and dump materials into it. Not everything is permanent. Certain little fires, and the most basic little fire and the most basic little hunting tent will only last you for one night. That's it, and then they're destroyed or whatever, and you have to build a new one. So I generally skip on that shit and move right on up to the next one in most cases. So one thing that you'll notice is that you're eventually, if you're perceptive anyway, going to notice that you might see somebody just off in the distance a little ways, kind of watching you, seeing what you're doing. They're not hostile at the moment, but they are paying attention. Now, this will be most likely how your first encounter with the local folks, the local tribes people, will be, is that you'll see in the distance scouts, and they obviously they know something's up. A fucking plane crashed on their island. They noticed. It's hard to hide that, you know. For whatever reason, apparently Redman didn't just like tell them straight up that, hey, there's this dude surviving and here's his kid, because they don't know that you're alive. Or maybe he just assumed you died when you passed back out. Who's to say? But you find some scouts. Now you've got a couple of ways that you can handle this. If you leave them alone, they're gonna go and they're gonna tell their friends. That's going to be a problem, because now the tribes at large will be fully aware of the fact that you're there, and they will be actively taking pot shots at you, taking opportunities that they see to try and eliminate you. Or you can just charge them and try and kill them outright right there and keep the fact that you're around a secret. With that said, it's only going to work for so long. They're going to notice that first of all, they're going to notice that something happened to their dudes. They're gonna know that, hey, we sent these little guys out scouting and they didn't come back. Send some more people to go see what happened, you know? And they're gonna figure it out. If you kill one or two scouting parties, they're gonna know that something is actively killing them. You know, these folks live on this island, they know about the threats and the dangers, and they know how to avoid them. So they know that this is probably some sort of outside force killing them. So you'll have your secret kept for a little while longer, but don't think that they won't keep looking for you, because they'll absolutely be aware. So inevitably you're going to get into a spot where you're going to have to confront them, and they might have a big nasty warrior dude with them, and depending on where your camp is, you're not really going to have much of a choice but to fight them outright. And it's a challenge. They're very fluid with their movements. A lot of the scout types are they're basically naked. They have nothing holding them back. They're slapping you. They're rolling around. They're doing all kinds of crazy shit, and they're kind of hard to hit, but you can hit them. You can absolutely hit them. You can also dispose of bodies, toss them into the water, or whatever have you. You know, you can cut their arms and legs and head off. That's resources right there, my dude. You throw them some bitches on the fucking fire. You can burn the flesh and muscle right off of them and harvest out the bones. Or you can even eat them. You can be a cannibal yourself if you really want to. That gets you some food in your belly. Plus, again, bones. Bones are useful. You can make armor out of them, among other things. But let's say you go down. If you do go down in a fight, you're not dead. It's not game over. You'll wake up to see that they're dragging you. This is where the horror really kicks in, because you wake up for a second to see that you're being dragged through the woods. And you pass back out, only to wake up again to see that you're hung upside down in a cave. Now, you can retract and you cut yourself down. Not an issue. But now the issue is that you're in this cave. This cave is important. A lot of stuff goes on in here, but are you brave enough to brave the cave? You got your lighter for light. You can put a rag on your axe and light it on fire and use it as a weapon and a torch at the same time. Just bear in mind that swinging it a couple times is going to put the fire out. And hitting something with a flaming axe is not going to light them on fire. This isn't a fantasy game in that regard anyway. So I'm not going to get too much. I do know what is down in those caves as far as like the immediate scary shit, and I'm not going to get into it. I don't want to ruin that for people who are going to play the game. I want people to go through, and that first time they encounter what is actually living in those caves, I want people to be able to like get scared absolutely fucking silly, because my god, there is some wild shit in those fucking caves. And if you decide to go and explore deeper, you're going to learn real fast that there's some really serious shit going on this island, and that you're going to want to get your little sweet little boy and get the fuck on out of there, because that shit is no good. So overall, it's a solid game though. Very, very solid game. It's, like I said, it's like the scariest survival game I've played in a very long time. It's one of the scariest games I've played in a long time. Like, I'm not even considering jump scares. Like, that's not really a thing that happens here. This is terror. This game is scary because it's scary, because of what it is, because of what's going on, because of what's around you, the environment, the atmosphere, the knowledge that you obtain while you're searching and digging and looking. It all just makes things scarier and scarier the further along you go. So I give this game a pretty strong recommendation. It is, in my opinion, one of, if not the absolute best survival horror game on fucking Steam. Period. Like, and it actually came out. Like, that's the thing. It actually came out. I'm amazed by that. So, that's another thing that a lot of people were worried about in the very, very beginning. It's $20, the full game. It's very positive overall. We're looking at 93% of people on Steam say it's good. In the recent reviews, it's 96%. It's a good game. It's a real good game. It's got a solid crafting system. It has a story, a coherent one. It has multiplayer. I didn't really talk about the multiplayer because I haven't really played the multiplayer. But it does have multiplayer. It's got a lot of things going on. And there's a lot of really gross things that you'll find as well. So if scary and terror is your thing, then this game is the game for you. Because it does a really, really good job of it. So, this video is dragged on a bit long, but this is just one of those games. It's just that fucking good. Also, there is no natives in my gameplay footage because I played for a damn hour straight recording. I even switched over from the new save that I started specifically to get footage over to my established save where I've been fighting these guys for a hot minute now on my beach, and I just could not get them to show up at all. And so, unfortunately, there's no fighting against them going on. But there is gameplay. It showcases a lot of the other things, a lot of the less scary things. So, hopefully that's enjoyable. And, yeah, hopefully you guys are out there, you're staying safe, you are staying educated, and having a good day. And then, so, if you'd like to, you can like, comment, subscribe, maybe grief that bell button a little bit. And until next time, I will fuck